The early morning fog hugged Naval Base Coronado like a damp blanket, blurring the edges of the sprawling training field. Lieutenant Riley Ward adjusted her uniform as she walked across the sand, boots sinking slightly into the damp grains. She could feel the tension in the air before she even reached the training squad. The way the other Marines and SEAL candidates glanced sideways, whispered in low tones, and stiffened their shoulders as she approached. She'd been transferred here only 3 days ago, the first woman assigned to work directly with this elite SEAL evaluation unit. Riley ignored the stares. She didn't need validation, not from them, not from anyone. She survived a hellish tour in Afghanistan, dodged sniper fire, and even lived through a helicopter crash that should have killed her. And yet here she was, standing tall in a place where everyone assumed she didn't belong. 2 Marines, Corporal Haas and Sergeant Klein, stepped forward, their smirks the kind that made her blood simmer. They were the type of men who took pride in intimidating newcomers, especially ones they assumed were weaker than themselves. Riley could see it in their eyes, the smug, unspoken belief that she was just a girl in a man's world, someone who would crumble at the first shove. "Morning, Lieutenant," Klein drawled, blocking her path. His grin was sharp, predatory. "I hear you're the new transfer. Thought you might want to kneel and learn your place before stepping on the sand." Riley froze for a split second, letting the words sink in. The entire field seemed to hold its breath. Behind Klein and Haas, the SEAL evaluation team formed a half-circle, observing, measuring, calculating. They were experts at detecting tension, predicting reactions, and nodding weakness. Before she could respond, Haas lunged. A swift, sharp motion of his boot caught her ankle, and Riley stumbled, crashing into the sand. She tasted grit, felt her palms scrape against the damp grains, and knew immediately that the entire field was watching. Every pair of eyes, male, female, seasoned SEAL, grizzled veteran, was trained to detect fear or hesitation, and she had none. Riley rolled onto her knees, the sting in her skin forgotten as anger ignited like a flare inside her chest. She pushed herself upright, shoulders back, spine straight. Her uniform was dusty, but it didn't matter. The insult, the physical humiliation, wasn't something she could ignore. She let her gaze meet Klein's, cold and unwavering. The SEAL candidates murmured, a low wave of astonishment running through them. Riley's heartbeat wasn't racing, her breath was steady, and yet beneath the calm surface, instincts honed from years in combat were screaming in readiness. She was alive, alert, and ready. Klein laughed, a rough sound that echoed across the field. "Relax, Lieutenant, it was just a joke." Riley's lips pressed together. She wasn't laughing, she wouldn't be. She rose fully to her feet, sand falling from her hair like ash from a fire, and stepped closer. The air seemed to tighten between them. "You want me to kneel?" she asked, her voice quiet but sharp, each syllable measured. The words weren't a question, they were a challenge, a gauntlet thrown down in front of the arrogant Marine. The SEAL commander, Rourke, stormed up at that precise moment. His presence alone carried authority heavy enough to make seasoned warriors tense. "Ward, stand down, both of you. Move to your stations." His voice cracked like a whip, but Riley's eyes never wavered from Klein. The spark of defiance was not just visible, it radiated across the field. Haas moved closer, closing the distance with a predator's grin. "Or what?" he whispered. "You're gonna file a report?" Riley tilted her head slightly, the corners of her mouth hinting at a smirk that was more dangerous than anything Haas had ever faced. "No," she said, "I don't need to." The surrounding SEAL candidates exchanged subtle glances. Something shifted in their assessment. Riley wasn't some fragile female officer looking for validation. She was a professional who had survived the worst the world could throw at her, and she was not afraid to respond. Klein's grin faltered, his eyes narrowed. He lunged. Just a step, just a motion, but in the blink of an eye, Riley's combat instincts activated. Her body moved before thought had a chance to catch up. She sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, twisted, and propelled him over her shoulder. The sand erupted beneath him as he landed with a heavy thud, drawing gasps from several SEAL candidates. Haas's laughter faltered. "What the hell?" he exclaimed, stunned by the speed, precision, and sheer power of Riley's move. But Riley didn't gloat, she didn't smile. She simply lowered into a defensive stance, muscles coiled, eyes locked on Haas.
He charged next, and in seconds she sidestepped, swept his legs, and sent him crashing into the sand. Dust and grit clouded the air, the sound of impact echoing across the field like gunfire. 2 Marines down, 2 seconds. The SEALs around them froze, disbelief written across their faces. Not one of them had expected her to react this way. They had expected hesitation, embarrassment, maybe even tears. But instead, Riley Ward had turned their aggression into a display of surgical skill and controlled power. Commander Rourke blew his whistle. The shrill sound cut through the tension like a scalpel. "Ward, office now." Riley exhaled slowly, brushing sand from her uniform, and allowed herself the smallest smile, a spark of satisfaction tempered by awareness. Klein, his face red with humiliation, reached for the knife strapped to his boot, but she saw it. Her eyes narrowed and her body tensed. The other SEALs didn't notice.
Rourke, however, did, and before the situation could escalate further, he lunged, ripping Klein backward. The knife clattered against the sand. Klein was dragged away, still snarling but powerless. Riley's pulse thrummed steadily. She hadn't lost control. She hadn't panicked. And as she stood dusted off and ready to follow Rourke to the office, she realized something. In these few moments, she had done more than defend herself. She had made everyone watching reconsider her. She had made them all realize that she was not to be underestimated. But even as she walked toward the office, adrenaline still coursing through her veins, Riley knew this was only the beginning. The SEAL unit had already taken notice, and somewhere deep down she understood the unspoken truth. They wanted to see what else she was capable of. Because the field, the Marines, the evaluation unit, none of it had prepared anyone for the lieutenant who had just been kicked down and risen stronger than anyone could have imagined. And Riley Ward, she was just getting started. Riley followed Commander Rourke across the sand toward the office building, each step deliberate, controlled. The early morning fog clung to her hair, streaked with grit, and her uniform smelled faintly of sweat and sand. The SEAL candidates watched in silence, some whispering under their breath, some shaking their heads in disbelief. She could feel their judgment, their curiosity, their fear, and Riley did not flinch. Rourke's office door slammed behind them, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "Ward, what the hell were you thinking out there?" His voice was sharp enough to cut metal. "I defended myself, sir," Riley said evenly, meeting his gaze. "I didn't start it." "You humiliated Marines in my command," Rourke barked. "Do you understand how many complaints I'm going to get?" "I understand, sir," Riley replied. "But I also understand what could have happened if I hadn't acted." Rourke rubbed the back of his neck, jaw tight. His eyes flicked to the small sand stains on her uniform, the faint scrapes on her palms, the barely visible anger still radiating off her. He exhaled slowly, the thunderclouds of his temper breaking just enough for reason to shine through. "You know, Ward," he said, voice lower, more thoughtful, "this isn't about whether you're capable. I know you are. Hell, I've heard stories about your deployments. What I don't know is if you could work with the team without escalating the situation." Riley didn't move. Her jaw was set. "Sir, if the team attacks me, I'll respond. That's my job, and theirs is to survive alongside me, not try to break me." Rourke stared for a long moment. The room was heavy with tension. Outside, muted shouts from the SEAL candidates reached their ears. They weren't making a sound on purpose. They were waiting to see the aftermath, to measure Riley. "Do you even realize what you just did?" Rourke asked finally. 2 Marines down, and before anyone can stop you, they're out cold. One wrong move, and you could have ended up in a courtroom, or worse, a disciplinary report that ruins your career. Riley tilted her head. "I know exactly what I did, sir, and I'd do it again. You taught me to survive, to protect, to act when others hesitate. That's exactly what I did." Rourke's lips pressed together. He ran a hand through his hair. "You're damn stubborn," he muttered, "and I have to admit it scares the hell out of me." Riley allowed herself the smallest smirk. "Good. Fear keeps people alive." Rourke blinked, clearly not expecting the remark. He let it pass. Then he motioned toward the window. "The SEAL team is out there now, watching, measuring. They want to know if your move this morning was a fluke or if you belong in their world." Riley's stomach tightened. This wasn't a test. She knew the difference. A training exercise was one thing. A SEAL evaluation challenge was another.
It wasn't just physical, it was psychological. A grueling series of maneuvers designed to break people mentally before they were allowed to advance. And everyone, man or woman, knew only the most ruthless and prepared made it through unscathed. "Sir," she asked cautiously, "what exactly do you mean by 'they want to know if I belong'?" Rook's eyes darkened. "They want a demonstration. They're going to test you in ways you haven't even imagined yet, and trust me, Lieutenant, it's not going to be pretty." The words sank in. Riley's pulse quickened, not of fear, but anticipation. This was exactly what she had trained for. Every grueling hour in Afghanistan, every night in the sand under enemy fire, every moment she had pushed her body beyond exhaustion. This was preparation for something like this. "And if I pass?" Riley asked. Rook didn't answer immediately. He didn't need to. His silence was enough. Outside, the faint sound of footsteps running across the sand reached them. The SEAL candidates were assembling again, forming the same semicircle that had been waiting for her hours ago. But this time, the tension was different. The curiosity had sharpened into something almost predatory. "They're serious," Rook said finally, voice low. "If you fail, it won't just be embarrassment. It'll be brutal. Physically, mentally, emotionally. You'll understand what I mean when you step out there." Riley nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "Understood, sir." The room went silent for a beat. Then Rook's phone vibrated sharply on the desk. He glanced at the screen, his face hardening. A message from one of the senior SEALs on duty flashed. "Lieutenant Ward, ready?" Rook exhaled, pocketed the phone, and pointed toward the door. "Go now. Show them who you are." Riley stepped into the corridor.
The echo of her boots, a steady drumbeat of determination. Every SEAL candidate on the field watched her approach. Whispers erupted immediately. Did she really floor 2 Marines? She's insane and deadly. Bishop, the mountain of a man rumored to be the strongest in the unit, stepped forward from the semicircle, crossing his arms. His eyes were cold, appraising. "Lieutenant Ward," he said, his voice carrying over the field, "you made 2 of our guys collapse in seconds. Impressive. Lucky, maybe, but impressive." Riley didn't answer. She didn't flinch. She let the quiet intensity of her gaze do the talking. Bishop narrowed his eyes, sensing the steel behind her calm. "You want me to kneel?" Riley asked, voice soft but sharp, just audible to him. The words weren't a question, they were a challenge he couldn't ignore. Bishop smirked. "No one's asking you to kneel, Lieutenant. This isn't about submission. This is about proving yourself." Riley's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then let's prove it." The other SEAL candidates began circling, forming a tighter ring around her. She could sense the energy in the air. Anticipation, aggression, judgment. Every step, every movement had been calculated by them, measured in milliseconds. They weren't just testing her physical prowess. They were testing her mental acuity, her response under pressure, her ability to think while under extreme stress. Klein and Ha, now back on their feet at the far edge of the field, scowled, their humiliation still fresh. They were angry, but they weren't the threat anymore. This was different. This was an evaluation, and Riley could feel it. Her muscles tensed, shoulders coiled, heart steady. She scanned the circle quickly, noting Bishop's stance, Ortiz's impatient shuffling, the subtle cues in the others' movements. She didn't have to guess. She had trained her entire life to read situations like this. Then Bishop lunged, not aggressively, but with purpose, a test of her reflexes, her ability to control and counter a larger opponent. Riley's body reacted instinctively. She sidestepped, pivoted, and used his momentum to destabilize him. The sand kicked up around her feet as she landed solidly, unshaken. The SEAL candidates gasped. Some whispered. Others watched silently, calculating. Riley felt a small thrill in her chest. She wasn't just proving herself to them, she was proving herself to herself. Bishop recovered, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Not bad, Lieutenant, but can you handle the rest?" Riley didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her eyes swept the circle, absorbing, anticipating. She could feel it in the air. The unit had just begun, and she knew deep down that this morning, the kick, the humiliation, the collapse of Ha and Klein was only the opening act, because the real test was about to begin, and Riley Ward, she was ready. The fog over the training field seemed to thicken, as if sensing the storm about to descend. The fog hung heavier now, curling around the edges of the training field like a living thing, softening the sunlight and muffling distant footsteps. Riley Ward's boots sank slightly into the sand as she assumed her stance. The SEAL candidates formed a tight ring, a silent, tense audience. Their gazes were sharp, predatory, waiting for the moment she faltered. This was no longer about Haw or Klein. This was about proving herself to men who thrived on chaos, discipline, and precision. Bishop, the mountain of a man, moved first. His approach was deliberate, like a predator stalking prey. Every step resonated authority, experience, raw strength. He lunged, testing Riley's reflexes, aiming for her wrist. She didn't hesitate. In 2 seconds, everything changed. Riley shifted her weight, pivoted on her right foot, and twisted her hips. Bishop's momentum carried him forward, and she used it against him. Grabbing his wrist, she spun him off balance and slammed him onto the sand with a controlled force that reverberated across the field. The thud drew gasps from every SEAL candidate. Riley didn't pause. She lowered herself into a defensive stance, scanning the circle. Ortiz, another candidate, charged instinctively. Riley reacted instantly. She ducked, using his forward momentum to sweep his legs. He hit the sand beside Bishop, unable to regain his balance. 2 massive men collapsed in 2 seconds. A ripple of shock passed through the circle. Even the quiet, analytical candidates couldn't mask their surprise. Rourke, standing on the sidelines, blew his whistle sharply, signaling pause, but Riley's eyes never left the ring. Bishop groaned as he tried to rise, sand clinging to his sweat-soaked uniform. Ortiz struggled beside him. Riley's stance remained steady, calm, unbroken. The fog seemed to thicken around her, a silent curtain hiding the storm of adrenaline coursing through her veins. 2 seconds, a candidate whispered. She did it in 2 seconds. Riley's gaze swept the circle again. They were analyzing her, measuring her, trying to find the flaws she didn't have. She could feel their weight, their scrutiny pressing down on her like a physical force. Every step, every twitch of muscle was noted, every blink, every breath catalogued. Bishop struggled upright, glaring at her, pride wounded but determination renewed. Impressive, he admitted, voice low, almost grudgingly. Lucky, maybe, but impressive. Riley said nothing. Words weren't necessary. Her silence spoke volumes. Ortiz, recovering from the sweep, shook sand from his uniform and clenched his fists. He lunged again, a calculated strike aimed at her ribs. Riley anticipated the motion. She sidestepped, twisting her body to redirect his force, and delivered a precise palm strike to the nerve bundle just under his shoulder. Ortiz's arm went dead instantly. His eyes widened, disbelief flooding his features. He stumbled, tried to compensate, but Riley had already anticipated the next move. She hooked his leg, drove her shoulder into his torso, and sent him collapsing beside Bishop in a cloud of sand. The field erupted in gasps and murmurs, disbelief vibrating through the ranks. 2 massive men, one nearly twice her size, collapsed back to back under her precision, and Riley remained unscathed, calm, controlled. Rourke's whistle blew again, piercing the tension like lightning. He stormed toward the field, his face a storm of awe and barely contained anger. "Ward, that's enough for now." But Riley didn't move. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, swept across the circle. The remaining SEAL candidates were frozen, some whispering, some analyzing, all reassessing their understanding of who she was. "You're good," Bishop said, voice grudging. "Very good, but this isn't luck. You've got skill, timing, maybe even talent, but the rest of us, we're just getting started." Riley's pulse remained steady. She had felt this before, the electric awareness of being surrounded, evaluated, hunted. Every nerve fired, muscles coiled, instincts alive. She had survived situations far deadlier than this, and she understood one immutable truth. The SEAL team wouldn't give her anything for free. "You're going to have to prove yourself, Lieutenant," Bishop continued, "over and over, and the second you hesitate, you'll get broken." Riley's lips pressed together. "I don't hesitate." The other candidates exchanged glances. Bishop wasn't exaggerating. Their eyes flicked to Rourke, waiting for him to intervene, but Rourke only crossed his arms, a silent signal, "You're on your own." That realization sharpened Riley's focus.
This wasn't a show, this wasn't a friendly spar, this was a test, and the SEAL candidates were counting on her reaction to measure every microsecond, every move, every decision. Ortiz groaned, trying to push himself up, but Riley didn't let him recover. A quick kick to his side, precise enough to destabilize without causing lasting harm, pinned him in place. Bishop's eyes narrowed. "You're going to have to fight smarter than that," he warned, circling her like a hawk. "We're not just going to stand there and let you knock us down. Not everyone can take hits and come back like nothing happened." Riley shifted her stance, sand sliding under her boots. Her gaze moved quickly, assessing the patterns, noticing subtle tells in their movement. A slight lean forward, a tightening of fists, a shift in weight, small clues to their intent, their weakness, their rhythm. The fog seemed to pulse with energy as the SEAL candidates advanced simultaneously, a wave of calculated aggression. Riley moved with them, deflecting, redirecting, striking with precision and control. Every move was deliberate, every breath synchronized with the rhythm of the circle. For a few seconds, time seemed suspended. The sand erupted, dust clouds forming around limbs and boots, faces twisted in effort and surprise. Whispers of disbelief echoed. "She's unreal. How is she not fazed? No one moves like that." Even Rourke, standing at the sidelines, couldn't hide his shock. The calmness with which Riley controlled the chaos was almost terrifying. He could see it. The discipline, the instinct, the mental clarity under stress. This wasn't a rookie making her mark. This was a soldier forged in fire, tested in the crucible of war. Bishop lunged again, attempting a grapple, but Riley anticipated his motion. With a fluid pivot, she used his momentum, throwing him off balance once more and landing a controlled strike to a pressure point near his ribs. Bishop staggered, caught off guard, and fell back against the sand with a grunt of surprise. The remaining SEAL candidates froze, some stepping back, others studying her, recalculating. Riley didn't give them time to recover. Her eyes scanned the circle again, measuring, calculating. This was a dance of survival and skill, and she was leading. 2 seconds, that was all it took. 2 seconds to dominate, 2 seconds to send a statement. Riley Ward was not just capable, she was lethal, precise, unflinching. Silence crashed over the field, heavy and profound. For the first time, the SEAL evaluation team wasn't measuring potential, they were witnessing reality. Riley wasn't a threat because of aggression, she was a threat because she moved with perfect control, instincts tuned to lethal precision, and a mind sharp enough to anticipate and counter every attack before it began. Bishop rose slowly, dusting sand from his uniform, his jaw tightened, eyes locked on Riley. "Not bad," he muttered, almost admiringly. "You just earned the respect of the unit, but don't get comfortable. This is just the beginning." Riley's gaze didn't waver. "I never get comfortable." The fog swirled around them, and for a brief moment the entire field seemed suspended in anticipation. No one moved. Even the birds over the base seemed to hover, sensing the tension. Then, as if on cue, a distant alarm sounded, a faint, sharp wail from the edge of the base. All eyes flicked toward the source. Riley's instincts screamed. Something was coming, something real. Bishop and Ortiz exchanged uneasy glances. The rest of the SEAL candidates stiffened. Rourke's jaw tightened. Riley exhaled slowly, ready for the next phase. Whatever it was, she knew one thing. The field, the test, and the unit's judgment were about to be challenged by more than just skill. And Riley Ward thrived on challenges.
Seconds of chaos, her display had left the unit shaken, but she knew better than to let success breed complacency. Bishop moved first. His massive frame carried authority, a reminder of just how dangerous even the evaluation candidates could be. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His stance alone was a challenge, predictable yet lethal, ready to test her every limit. Ortiz, still recovering from the previous strikes, shifted his weight, preparing to re-engage. Riley anticipated every flicker of muscle movement, every micro-adjustment of balance. This was no longer sparring. This was a war of perception, where hesitation meant vulnerability. Then Klein appeared, the Marine who had humiliated her earlier, the one whose hand had almost gone for the knife, stepped forward. His chest heaved, face flushed with anger and humiliation. He'd been waiting for a moment like this, and now he saw it.
A single, unguarded second that might allow him to reclaim dignity. Riley noticed him immediately. Instinctively, her body tensed, her muscles coiled like springs ready to respond to any threat. But she didn't move toward him. She didn't escalate. Not yet. Because she understood a crucial truth. Sometimes control wasn't about striking first. Sometimes control was about knowing the line you would refuse to cross. Klein's fingers twitched toward the knife strapped at his boot. Riley's eyes locked on it, her mind running calculations. If he drew it, this would escalate far beyond training or evaluation. One wrong step, and lives could be at stake. "You pull that," she said quietly, her voice calm, precise, and deadly in its control, "and you're ending your career in the next 5 seconds." The SEAL candidates froze. Even Bishop's jaw tightened at her words. Work's hands clenched behind his back, the tension radiating from him like static electricity. The warning wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. Riley's calm authority in the face of potential violence made it clear she had the skills to neutralize him instantly, but she chose not to. Klein hesitated. The knife's handle brushed against his palm. A flicker of doubt crossed his eyes. He was angry, yes, but he also recognized the razor-sharp precision in Riley's gaze. For a moment, the field seemed suspended, every eye locked on the silent standoff. Then, just as tension reached its peak, Work lunged, grabbing Klein from behind and ripping him backward. The Marine's struggle was futile. Riley's warning had already influenced the outcome. Klein's face twisted in fury and disbelief as he was dragged away, still snarling but powerless. The SEAL candidates exhaled collectively. The momentary threat dissipated. Riley lowered her stance slightly, muscles still coiled, eyes sweeping the field. She had chosen control over chaos, restraint over revenge. In doing so, she had cemented her authority, not through aggression, but through precision, judgment, and fearlessness. Work's voice broke the silence. "Ward, inside now." She followed him, boots scraping the sand softly, her mind already analyzing the next challenge. The office was stark, fluorescent light casting sharp shadows across the walls. Work paced behind his desk, voice measured now, no longer the roar of authority, but the careful tones of evaluation. "You understand," he said, stopping to face her, "that what you just did, what you just prevented, could have ended very differently." "I do, sir," Riley replied, "and I made sure it didn't." Work rubbed his temples. "You've got skill, Lieutenant, no doubt about that. But the unit, the SEAL candidates, they need to know if you can operate under pressure without losing control. Because out there," he gestured vaguely toward the training field, "it's not just about hitting first. It's about strategy, judgment, and survival." Riley nodded, understanding. She had survived fire and explosions, ambushes and betrayals. But this was a different kind of battlefield, one where every decision had consequences not just for her, but for those around her. A sudden knock at the door drew her attention. One of the senior SEAL evaluators stepped in. "Commander Rourke, the team is assembled outside. They're ready to continue the evaluation." Rourke's gaze flicked toward Riley. "Ward, they want you back on the field. This is the next phase. You understand that this isn't just about physical skill. They're going to test your mental toughness as well. Every move you make will be analyzed." Riley's pulse quickened, but not out of fear. She thrived under pressure. She had been forged in circumstances where hesitation meant death. The SEAL evaluation was merely another arena, another test, another battlefield, one where her mind and body could work in perfect synchrony. She followed Rook back outside, where the fog had lifted slightly, revealing the SEAL candidates forming a new, tighter circle. Their eyes were focused, evaluating her every movement. Bishop stepped forward, the mountain of a man radiating calm menace. "Lieutenant Ward," he said, voice low and controlled. "The first round was impressive, but now it's time to see if that was luck, timing, or true skill." Riley met his gaze evenly. "I don't rely on luck." The circle tightened. Ortiz and several others assumed aggressive stances, a silent signal that the next challenge was about to begin. Riley adjusted her grip, shifted her weight, and let instinct take over. Every muscle, every nerve, every thought was synchronized for the imminent engagement. Bishop lunged first, testing her reflexes, aiming to trap her in a grapple. Riley anticipated his motion, pivoting and using his momentum against him. The sand erupted under their movements, dust swirling around her feet. She struck precise points along his body, pressure points, leverage, balance, rendering him momentarily immobile. Ortiz charged immediately after.
Attempting a blindside, Riley ducked under his arm, striking with surgical precision. Ortiz froze, then collapsed lightly to the sand beside Bishop. The SEAL candidates murmured in disbelief. Riley's movements were fluid, controlled, and terrifyingly precise. Rourke whistled sharply again, signaling a pause. He could see what she had accomplished. 2 massive men neutralized without lethal force, the remaining candidates stunned, and a calculated display of control over aggression. Riley had maintained the line, refused to cross it, and asserted dominance through skill rather than anger. Bishop staggered to his feet, a grudging respect in his eyes. "You've got skill, Lieutenant. Not many can control a situation like that and still hold their composure." Riley's gaze swept the circle. "I never lose composure," she replied. The fog swirled around them once more, thickening like a living entity. The field had become an arena of judgment, anticipation, and raw power. Every SEAL candidate understood one immutable truth. Riley Ward was not just a participant in their evaluation, she was a force to be reckoned with. Then the distant wail of the base alarm echoed across the field, sharp and urgent. All heads turned toward the sound. Riley's pulse spiked, not with fear, but with anticipation. Something real was coming, something outside the bounds of evaluation. Bishop and Ortiz exchanged uneasy glances. Even the other candidates stiffened. Rourke's jaw tightened, his face hardening as he realized the alarm was no drill. Riley inhaled deeply, adjusting her stance. Whatever danger awaited, she was ready. The line she refused to cross had been tested, and now the real challenge was about to begin, one that would demand more than precision or control. It would demand survival, judgment, and instinct, everything she had. And as she stood there, eyes sweeping the field, Riley understood. The SEAL unit's evaluation had only prepared her for one thing. The real test, danger beyond the field, chaos beyond control, was waiting. And Riley Ward thrived in the waiting storm. Riley Ward followed Commander Rourke back into his office, the tension from the field still humming through her muscles like electricity. Every step was measured, each breath controlled. The fluorescent lights above cast stark shadows across the walls, highlighting the sweat streaks on her uniform and the faint grit still clinging to her palms. This wasn't about humiliation anymore. It was about evaluation, judgment, and survival in a world where hesitation could be fatal. Rourke closed the door behind them with a heavy thud that reverberated across the room. "Lieutenant Ward," he began, voice low but filled with authority. "Explain to me what you were thinking out there." "I defended myself, sir," Riley said evenly. Her voice was calm, but under the surface, adrenaline still coursed through her veins. "I didn't provoke anyone, but I also didn't allow them to provoke me. I protected myself and prevented escalation." Rourke rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Do you understand how close you came to a serious incident? 2 Marines down in seconds. That could have ended in a court-martial or a report that would have followed you for the rest of your career." Riley's gaze remained steady. "Sir, I understand. I weighed the risks, but if I had hesitated, the consequences would have been worse for them, for the unit, and for me. I made the call that minimized danger while maintaining control." Rourke's eyes narrowed, scanning her from toe to toe. He'd heard similar statements from countless recruits, but he knew instinct when he saw it. Riley's calm wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't bravado, it was lethal, precise, and genuine. "You're telling me you could have taken them out completely?" he asked, voice sharp. "I could have," she replied, "but I didn't." A silence hung in the office, thick and heavy. Rourke exhaled slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "That," he admitted quietly, "is what scares me most about you. You have the capability, you have control and the judgment to hold back. Not many possess that combination." Riley allowed herself a small nod, acknowledging the rare compliment, but there was no time for pride. She knew the unit had already formed judgments outside the office, and their evaluation wasn't finished. Before Rourke could speak again, the door opened sharply, and a senior SEAL evaluator entered, clipboard in hand.
"Commander, the team is assembled outside. They're ready for the next phase of evaluation." Rourke's gaze flicked toward Riley, a subtle but unmistakable acknowledgement passing between them. "Ward," he said, voice low, "they want you back on the field. This phase isn't just about physical skill, it's about mental fortitude, decision-making under pressure, and your ability to maintain composure while the entire unit evaluates you." Riley's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with anticipation. She thrived under pressure. That was where she performed best. "Understood, sir," she said, her tone steady. Rourke nodded once, then gestured toward the door. "Go. Show them what you're made of." The corridor outside was narrow and sterile, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. Riley's boots clicked against the floor, each step a countdown to the next challenge. The SEAL candidates were already assembled, forming a tighter circle than before. Their expressions were serious, eyes scanning, calculating. They had seen her skill, her precision, and the speed with which she neutralized two massive Marines in seconds, but now they wanted more. Bishop stepped forward first, massive frame tense, eyes locked on her. "Lieutenant Ward," he said evenly, "you've shown skill, timing, and control. But the evaluation isn't about what you've done. It's about what you can do consistently under pressure and in situations where hesitation will get you and others hurt." Riley didn't flinch. "I understand." Bishop's smirk was faint but sharp, a predator testing prey. "Good. Then let's
See if you can maintain that composure when everything else is uncertain, when your instincts tell you one thing but the environment demands another." The candidates shifted slightly, circling her like wolves. Ortiz and two others advanced simultaneously, simulating a scenario where Riley had to react quickly to multiple attackers. Her muscles coiled, ready to spring. Every sense was alive. The subtle shift in Ortiz's weight, the faint exhale of Bishop as he measured her, the tiny movements of the others as they adjusted. Riley struck first, precise and deliberate. She sidestepped Ortiz's charge, using his momentum to guide him off balance, then pivoted to intercept the next candidate. Every movement was calculated, fluid, and controlled. Sand erupted beneath boots as each footfall marked the rhythm of survival. The SEAL candidates were evaluating, learning, and adjusting in real time. Bishop circled, assessing, analyzing, mentally calculating every tactic Riley employed. This wasn't just a test of strength or technique, it was a test of mental acuity, resilience, and adaptability. Rourke's whistle cut sharply through the tension, signaling pause. He approached her quickly, eyes scanning the field. "You recognized what you just did," he said, voice low but firm. "You neutralized multiple threats without unnecessary force. You maintained control over chaos. That's exactly what this evaluation measures." Riley exhaled slowly, muscles relaxing slightly. "Yes, sir." Rourke leaned closer, lowering his voice. "But remember this isn't the end. They're going to push harder now. The next phase isn't just physical, it's mental, emotional. They're going to test your limits." Riley's eyes narrowed. She understood implicitly. SEAL evaluations were not linear. They were designed to destabilize, to break people psychologically before they were allowed to advance. And she thrived in environments where pressure was constant, where mental fortitude determined survival. Just then, a faint rumble of movement reached her ears. She turned slightly, noting the SEAL candidates adjusting positions. The subtle tension in their shoulders, the gleam in their eyes. They weren't just evaluating, they were challenging her. Bishop stepped forward again. "Lieutenant Ward," he said, voice low and controlled. "You've impressed us so far, but now it's time to demonstrate whether you can maintain that composure in unpredictable situations. No hesitation, no doubt. One mistake and the consequences are real." Riley's pulse thumbed. She exhaled, centering herself. The office's sterile fluorescent light seemed distant now, irrelevant. What mattered was the field, the circle, the pressure, the test that had only begun. The fog outside began to swirl again, thick and heavy, as if sensing the storm of tension building. Riley adjusted her stance, ready to step back into the chaos, fully aware that the next phase could reveal far more than skill. It could reveal character, judgment, and the raw, unyielding instinct to survive.
And Riley Ward, she thrived on tests like these. Her eyes swept the SEAL circle, noting every flicker of muscle, every subtle shift in stance. She had survived worse than this. She had made decisions in life or death situations countless times before. And now, in the confines of this evaluation, she would prove it again. Because one thing was certain. The SEAL unit didn't know yet that the lieutenant they tested so aggressively this morning wasn't just skilled, she was untouchable, in control, precise in execution, and unstoppable in her resolve. And as she stepped forward, preparing to face the next wave of challenges, Riley knew the evaluation was only part of what was coming. Something real awaited outside the controlled chaos, a test beyond training, beyond preparation. Her instincts sharpened, every nerve fired, every breath measured. The storm wasn't over, it was only beginning.
Hang, still seething from earlier humiliations, advanced with a ferocity born of ego and frustration. Riley met him head-on, sidestepping his first swing, pivoting to redirect his momentum, and applying a controlled leverage technique that left him unbalanced. He hit the sand hard, gasping in shock. The remaining SEAL candidates froze for a brief moment. Riley wasn't just defending, she was dominating, maintaining composure while neutralizing multiple threats simultaneously. Bishop's jaw tightened, his respect growing despite the sting of being outmaneuvered. Rourke, standing at the edge of the field, blew his whistle sharply. The signal was clear. Pause. He approached quickly, voice low but forceful. "Ward, recognize what you've accomplished. You've neutralized multiple opponents without unnecessary aggression. That's control. That's evaluation success." Riley exhaled slowly, muscles coiled but relaxed. She scanned the circle, nodding. Every micro-expression, every subtle shift in stance. The SEAL candidates weren't just testing her physical skill, they were probing her mind, her capacity for situational awareness, her ability to make split-second decisions under pressure. Bishop stepped forward again. "Lieutenant Ward," he said, voice low, deliberate. "That was skillful, but the gauntlet doesn't end with technique. It's a test of strategy, endurance, and mental fortitude. They'll hit you from angles you don't expect, force you to make decisions under extreme stress. Are you ready for that?" Riley's eyes narrowed. "I've trained for worse." Ortiz and Hang exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected hesitation, perhaps even faltering confidence, but Riley exuded focus, precision, and control. This was no rookie. This was a professional, tested under fire and unflinching in the face of chaos. The gauntlet escalated. Bishop lunged, but this time his approach was unpredictable. He feinted left, then right, testing Riley's reactions. She pivoted instinctively, her body reading his motion like a living diagram. She redirected his force, using leverage to destabilize him again. Ortiz and Hang advanced simultaneously, striking from different angles. Riley's awareness expanded. She adjusted her stance, pivoted, countered, and neutralized both attacks with minimal force. The sand erupted in controlled bursts under her boots, dust swirling around her like a storm contained. The other SEAL candidates whispered among themselves, some amazed, others calculating how to adapt their next approach. Bishop's eyes narrowed. "Impressive," he admitted, voice tight with respect. "Not many can handle simultaneous threats and maintain composure." Riley didn't respond with words. She let her movements speak. Every pivot, every sweep, every strike was precise, efficient, controlled. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Suddenly, Ortiz feigned a stumble, a tactical bait designed to provoke a reaction. Riley froze for a half-second, just long enough to assess whether it was a trick. She recognized the deception immediately and countered by redirecting his motion, using his feint against him. Ortiz crashed to the sand again, caught in his own momentum. Bishop's respect deepened. "Strategic thinking," he muttered. "She's reading them, anticipating, adapting. She's analyzing the environment while executing flawlessly." The SEAL candidates began a more coordinated assault, pressing from multiple directions, testing her endurance and situational awareness. Riley pivoted and shifted with perfect timing, neutralizing attacks without unnecessary force, maintaining energy, control, and focus. Rourke watched from the sidelines, impressed despite himself. "Ward," he said quietly, "they're pushing the limit now. The gauntlet isn't just about skill anymore. It's about mental stamina, focus, and adaptability. Don't let them break you."
Riley's pulse thrummed steadily. She thrived under pressure. Every nerve, every muscle, every thought was synchronized for survival and dominance. The SEAL candidates pressed harder, attacking from unconventional angles, forcing her to pivot, twist, and counter continuously. Her awareness was heightened. She anticipated every move, every subtle shift in weight, every micro tremor in muscle. 2 seconds became the measure of every reaction, every calculated counter, every decision made under stress. Bishop lunged one final time, a coordinated attack with Ortiz and Hang flanking him. Riley's body moved instinctively. She pivoted, swept, and countered, neutralizing Bishop's strike while simultaneously destabilizing Ortiz and Hang. The field erupted in gasps. For the first time, the SEAL candidates froze completely. Riley stood in the center of the semicircle, poised, composed, unshaken. 2 seconds, 3 seconds, every attack neutralized. Rourke blew his whistle again, signaling the end. He approached Riley, his face a mix of admiration and disbelief. "Ward," he said quietly, "that was the gauntlet. Not many can handle that level of pressure, simultaneous threats, and maintain perfect composure. You exceeded expectations." Bishop stepped forward, dusting sand from his uniform. His eyes held grudging respect. "Lieutenant Ward," he said, evenly, voice controlled, "you've earned the respect of this unit today. Not many can dominate the gauntlet and retain composure, judgment, and control simultaneously. You did it flawlessly." Riley allowed herself a small nod. "Thank you, sir." The fog swirled around them, thick and heavy, as if marking the end of one storm and the anticipation of another. The SEAL unit had been impressed, but the evaluation was far from over. Riley knew that the next phase would test her in new ways, mental, emotional, and tactical. Her pulse slowed slightly, muscles relaxing just enough to breathe. She had survived.
The gauntlet. She had proven herself physically, mentally, and strategically. But Riley Ward knew one thing with certainty. This was only the beginning. The real challenge, the true test of survival, instinct, and resilience was still ahead. The fog above the field seemed to thicken, as if sensing the storm about to descend. Riley's eyes swept the circle, noting every detail, every expression, every micro-shift in stance. She was ready for what came next. And the SEAL unit? They had just met their match. The fog had thickened once again as Riley Ward stood at the edge of the SEAL training field, boots sinking into the damp sand. Sweat streaked her uniform and grit clung to her palms and knees. Her lungs expanded and contracted in slow, deliberate breaths. Every muscle in her body was coiled like a spring, primed for action. This wasn't a drill, or at least it felt like it was about to escape the boundaries of a drill. Commander Rourke's whistle echoed sharply through the field. The SEAL candidates immediately assumed positions, forming a tight semicircle, eyes locked on Riley, calculating. Their approach this time was different, not the individual strikes and predictable tactics of the gauntlet, but coordinated, synchronized, and chaotic. Riley sensed it instantly. The phase was no longer about testing individual skill. It was a simulation designed to push her tactical decision-making under pressure. Bishop stepped forward, calm, imposing. "Lieutenant Ward," he said evenly, voice cutting through the fog, "you've handled the gauntlet with precision, but now it's time to see how you react when the environment changes. Situations aren't always predictable. One misstep and the consequences could be catastrophic." Riley's jaw tightened. "Understood, sir." Ortiz and Haw exchanged glances, their prior humiliation barely masked. They were aggressive, but now they were tactical, their movements carefully coordinated, designed to test not just her reflexes, but her ability to anticipate multiple threats simultaneously. Rourke's whistle sounded again. The simulation began. Bishop lunged first, a feint to the left meant to draw her attention. Riley pivoted, redirecting his momentum, but she caught a subtle shift in Ortiz's stance at the same time, a secondary strike aimed at her side. Riley adjusted instantly, ducking under Ortiz's swing while simultaneously leveraging Bishop's momentum to throw him off balance. Haw charged from behind, a third threat in the chaos. Riley's body reacted automatically, every movement precise. She spun, countered Haw with a sweep that kept him from advancing, and pivoted to maintain balance and awareness of the surrounding candidates. 2 seconds, 3 seconds, every attack neutralized without overextension or unnecessary force. Her breathing remained controlled, her mind laser-focused. Bishop rose, eyes narrowing.
"Impressive," he muttered, circling her now like a predator studying its prey. "You're reacting fast, but can you strategize under pressure?" Riley didn't answer with words. She had already started forming her mental map of the battlefield, the positions of every SEAL candidate, the angles of attack, the escape paths, the terrain, subtle variations. She was anticipating not just their next movements, but the next several chaining reactions in her mind like an intricate web. Ortiz lunged again, this time with a more deliberate strategy. Riley sidestepped, pivoted, and leveraged his forward motion, sending him crashing into Haw. The collision created a cloud of sand, obscuring the view for the others. Riley took advantage of the obscured line of sight, repositioning herself to maintain spatial awareness and tactical advantage. The SEAL candidates were now working in unison. Bishop feinted, Haw charged, Ortiz tried to flank. 3 directions, 3 simultaneous threats. Riley didn't hesitate. She pivoted toward Bishop, redirected Haw's momentum, and delivered a precise strike to Ortiz's pressure point that forced him to stumble. Rourke, standing at the edge of the field, blew his whistle again. Ward, evaluate and react. Control the chaos. Riley exhaled sharply, scanning the field. Her instincts screamed. This was more than a simulation. Something about the coordinated attack felt real, unpredictable, dynamic in a way drills rarely achieved. She adjusted her stance, knees bent, weight centered, eyes scanning every movement. A distant commotion at the edge of the field drew her attention. A figure, unknown, unanticipated, approached rapidly, moving with speed that didn't match the SEAL candidates. Riley's pulse quickened slightly. It wasn't part of the training. Something real was entering the environment. Bishop noticed it too. "Ward, stay focused," he shouted. "Don't get distracted. This is part of the simulation. Predictable or not, your objective remains the same." But Riley sensed the anomaly immediately. Her instinct screamed, threat level maximum. She pivoted, repositioning herself to intercept the incoming figure while simultaneously maintaining awareness of the candidates around her. The figure, later revealed as part of a real-world intervention exercise, unannounced to maintain authenticity, advanced rapidly, simulating a hostage threat scenario. Riley assessed the situation instantly. The objective wasn't just neutralization, it was strategy, restraint, and rapid tactical decision-making. Ortiz and Haw flanked the intruder, their roles, part of the simulation, now intertwined with reality. Riley's mind processed the variables: multiple aggressors, unpredictable movement, high-risk scenario. She had seconds to decide, execute, and maintain control. Riley's body moved fluidly. She intercepted the intruder with a controlled sweep, redirecting his momentum while simultaneously leveraging Ortiz's momentum to throw him off balance.
Haw and Ortiz's positions to limit their mobility. Bishop advanced strategically, but Riley anticipated the angles, pivoting, striking with precision to destabilize him without overcommitting. 2 seconds, 4 seconds, every movement executed with lethal clarity, yet restrained to minimize unnecessary harm. Her awareness extended to the periphery, the subtle shifts of the sand beneath her boots, the glint of sunlight off helmets, the micro-adjustments in the attacker's balance. The SEAL candidates froze momentarily, witnessing not just skill, but tactical brilliance. Riley wasn't merely surviving, she was orchestrating the chaos, manipulating momentum, predicting outcomes. Rourke's voice cut through the tension again. "Ward, remember, the simulation is designed to test adaptability. You're not just neutralizing threats, you're maintaining control under unpredictability." Riley exhaled sharply. She understood the instruction instinctively, integrating it into her movements. She repositioned, ensuring the intruder was contained while Bishop, Ortiz, and Haw were destabilized, creating a controlled environment within the chaos. The fog swirled around the field, thickening as if mirroring the intensity of the moment. Riley's eyes scanned every threat vector, recalculating in real time. Her heart rate, though elevated, remained controlled, her mind sharp, her instincts flawless. Then, just as the scenario appeared under control, a new variable entered, the sound of simulated gunfire echoing from the distance. The SEAL candidates stiffened, the fog masking the source. Riley's instincts reacted instantly. The simulation had just escalated, introducing stress and uncertainty. She pivoted, shielding herself while simultaneously redirecting the closest aggressor's momentum. Bishop advanced from one side, Haw from another. Riley neutralized them with precision, leveraging balance and positioning. Every strike, sweep, and pivot was calculated to maintain dominance without overextension. Ortiz feigned a strike toward her blind side. Riley anticipated the motion, twisting her body, using his momentum against him and stabilizing her position to maintain awareness of the field. The fog thickened, the sounds of the simulation blending with reality. Riley realized this wasn't just an evaluation anymore. It was preparation for the unpredictable, the real-world scenarios where life and death hinged on milliseconds of decision-making. Bishop paused, chest heaving, eyes narrowing. Ward, impressive. Not many could orchestrate chaos like that. But remember, control isn't just physical. It's mental, tactical, and emotional. Can you maintain that under real-world pressure? Riley's jaw tightened. I've never been more ready. Her gaze swept the field. The SEAL candidates, the intruder, the simulated chaos, all elements of a gauntlet designed to break the weak, test the prepared, and separate instinct from skill. Riley wasn't just surviving, she was dominating, orchestrating, calculating. Rourke's whistle echoed one final time, signaling the pause. The field was quiet, every figure frozen in place, evaluating the results. Riley stood in the center, boots planted firmly in the sand, sweat streaking her face, eyes sharp and unyielding. She had maintained control, dominated multiple threats, and integrated unpredictability with precision. Bishop exhaled slowly, stepping closer. "Lieutenant Ward," he said, voice measured, respect evident. "You've not just survived the SEAL gauntlet, you've mastered it. Few can anticipate, adapt, and execute under pressure like that. You've earned the unit's respect and proven your readiness for anything." Riley allowed herself a small, controlled nod. She had survived the chaos, mastered unpredictability, and maintained composure under extreme pressure. But as the fog swirled around the field, thick and heavy, she knew this was only a precursor. Something real awaited beyond the training simulation, a test that would demand everything she had learned, every instinct honed, and every ounce of courage. And Riley Ward, she thrived in storms like these. The fog hung thick over the training field, swallowing the edges of the base in an eerie gray haze. Riley Ward stood in the center, boots sinking into damp sand, muscles coiled like a predator's, eyes sharp, every nerve electric. She had survived the gauntlet, the coordinated attacks, and the unannounced real-world simulation, but Rourke's voice had promised one final test. "This is it," Lieutenant Bishop said, stepping into the perimeter, his massive frame casting a shadow over the sand. "The culmination. Everything you faced so far was preparation. What comes next will test your instincts, your judgment, and your ability to maintain control under real pressure." Riley's jaw tightened. "I'm ready." Rourke stepped forward with clipboard in hand. "This final scenario is a controlled mission simulation, hostage extraction, multiple aggressors, unpredictable variables. You have to neutralize threats, make tactical decisions, and ensure zero casualties among your team and the hostages. The success criteria aren't just skill or speed, they're judgment, composure, and execution under pressure. One mistake and the entire operation fails." Her pulse accelerated slightly, but her breathing remained steady. This was exactly what she thrived on: controlled chaos, mental acuity, physical dominance, and high stakes. The adrenaline was a familiar friend. The field had been transformed for the scenario. Obstacles simulated civilians and aggressors hidden behind barrels and vehicles. Sand and debris provided cover, hiding angles of attack. The fog created uncertainty, and every shadow could conceal a threat. Riley's eyes scanned the environment, instantly calculating positions, trajectories, escape routes, and danger zones. Bishop and Ortiz were assigned roles as decoys, testing Riley's awareness and decision-making. Haw and several other SEAL candidates would simulate aggressors from multiple angles, creating unpredictable challenges. Rourke gave the signal, a whistle sharp and decisive. The moment the whistle pierced the fog, the scenario erupted in the chaos. Ha surged from the left flank, swinging with controlled force. Riley pivoted, redirecting his momentum, using his energy against him to destabilize him without overexertion. She moved fluidly, precise and deliberate, every muscle, every motion perfectly coordinated. From the right, Ortiz lunged, feigning aggression toward a simulated hostage. Riley reacted instantly, intercepting his motion while maintaining awareness of Ha and Bishop. She ducked, twisted, and redirected Ortiz, guiding him away from the civilian and into a controlled position that minimized risk while asserting dominance. 2 seconds. 4 seconds. Every movement was executed with flawless precision, yet restrained to minimize harm.
Her focus extended beyond physical skill. She was orchestrating the chaos, predicting every potential movement before it happened. Bishop feinted toward a barricade, testing her perception. Riley's instincts picked up the subtle shift in weight and angle. She adjusted her stance, pivoted, and redirected his momentum, neutralizing the feint without losing balance or awareness of the other threats. The scenario escalated further. A simulated hostage screamed, a sound designed to trigger instinctive reaction. Riley's eyes flicked toward the noise, assessing the threat in the environment simultaneously. Ha took advantage of the distraction, attempting a strike from an unexpected angle. Riley anticipated the move, sidestepping and delivering a precise sweep to destabilize him, all while keeping the hostage safe. Rourke observed from the sidelines, whistle in hand. Even he couldn't hide the tightness in his jaw. Riley wasn't just surviving the simulation, she was orchestrating it. Every movement, every pivot, every decision was a demonstration of mastery over chaos. The fog thickened, shadows blending with obstacles and debris. Riley's mind was alive, processing every micro-movement, every potential angle, every threat vector. She had trained for unpredictability, and now unpredictability had been amplified tenfold. Ortiz feigned a second strike, this time aiming from behind a barricade. Riley pivoted on her heel, intercepting him mid-motion, using his momentum to redirect him safely to the ground. Ha surged again from the left, but Riley anticipated the trajectory, stepping aside while sweeping his legs to unbalance him. The SEAL candidates witnessing the display were in awe. She wasn't just reacting, she was controlling, dominating, and predicting, turning the chaos to her advantage. Every decision was calculated, every motion purposeful, every second critical. Bishop, recognizing the precision, intensity, and composure of her movements, signaled Ha and Ortiz to escalate the challenge. Now, all four aggressors moved simultaneously,
Different directions, creating a synchronized assault designed to overwhelm her. Riley's body reacted instinctively. She pivoted, countered, redirected, and neutralized the attacks. Every strike precise, every sweep calculated. She moved like a storm contained in perfect control, fluid, lethal, yet restrained. Her eyes never left the simulated hostages or her team. The chaos peaked. Dust and sand erupted under boots, shadows blurred, and the simulated gunfire echoed unpredictably from different angles. Riley remained centered, breathing measured, mind sharp, reflexes instantaneous. In one seamless motion, she intercepted Ha, deflecting him away from the hostage, twisted to redirect Ortiz, and leveraged Bishop's momentum to force him into a controlled takedown. All the while, she kept Haas's flanking partner at bay with precise footwork and angles that denied any aggressive advantage. 2 seconds became 10. 10 seconds of controlled chaos, orchestrated and dominated. Riley had neutralized threats from multiple directions while ensuring the safety of all hostages and minimizing harm to the team. Rourke's whistle blew sharply, signaling the end. The fog seemed to part just slightly as Riley exhaled, muscles coiled but relaxed, eyes scanning the field one last time. She had maintained control through unpredictability, high-pressure coordination, and physical dominance. She had orchestrated chaos, protected the vulnerable, and executed flawless tactical decisions. Bishop approached, a rare look of genuine respect in his eyes. "Lieutenant Ward," he said, voice low, measured, "you've not only survived the gauntlet, you've mastered it. Few can anticipate, adapt, and dominate under this level of pressure. You didn't just react, you controlled every variable, every outcome. You are the kind of operator we dream of having on the field." Ortiz, H., and the other candidates nodded, some in disbelief, some with grudging admiration. Riley's display had shattered every preconceived notion they had about a rookie lieutenant. She had rewritten the rules of engagement for them. Rourke stepped forward, his expression a mixture of awe and pride. "Ward, you've proven more than skill. You've proven judgment, composure, and the ability to survive and dominate chaos. Not many in this world can do that. You're ready. Whatever comes next, you'll handle it with precision and control." Riley's chest rose and fell steadily.
Sweat and grit clung to her, but she felt the calm after the storm, the clarity of having faced the ultimate test and emerged not just unscathed, but victorious. The SEAL unit gathered around her, the fog lifting just enough to reveal their astonished faces. For the first time, Riley sensed genuine respect. Not fear, not doubt, not challenge, but recognition. She had earned it. Bishop clapped his massive hands once, a signal of acknowledgement. "Lieutenant Ward," he said, "you've earned your place in this unit, not because you hit hard, not because you moved fast, but because you think, adapt, and dominate when everything else goes wrong. That's rare, that's lethal, that's you." Riley nodded, the smallest hint of a smile crossing her face. She didn't need words to cement her victory. Her actions had spoken louder than any accolade. She had survived the gauntlet, the chaos, the simulation, and she had emerged unshaken, commanding, and untouchable. The fog finally began to dissipate, revealing the sun breaking through in streaks of gold. The field, once a place of tension, challenge, and chaos, now held a quiet reverence. Riley Ward had become more than a lieutenant today. She had become a force the SEAL unit would never forget. And as she walked off the field, boots crunching in sand, eyes forward, heart steady, she knew one immutable truth. No storm, real or simulated, would ever break her. She didn't just survive chaos, she mastered it. And the world, the SEAL unit, and anyone foolish enough to test her again would soon learn the same.